You can see me? The voice was low, cold, and impossibly close, as if it had been waiting in the darkness long before she stepped inside. Emily Carter froze, her hand still gripping the edge of the heavy wooden door she should never have opened. The air in the room felt wrong, too still, too heavy, like the entire space was holding its breath. She had come upstairs only to find a candle, nothing more, nothing dangerous. That was what she told herself as her eyes slowly adjusted to the dim glow of moonlight spilling through the tall window. And then she saw him, a man standing near the far wall, tall, perfectly still, dressed in black so dark it seemed to swallow the light around him. Her heart stumbled in her chest, not because he was there, but because she had not heard him arrive. Not a single footstep, not a single breath. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. Emily should have looked away. Every instinct told her to lower her gaze, to apologize, to run. That was the rule in this house. Do not look at the upper floors. Do not speak to anyone you do not recognize. Do not ask questions. But something held her in place. Something deeper than fear. The man turned slowly, his movements smooth in a way that did not feel human. His eyes found hers instantly, and in that moment, the world seemed to shift. His reflection did not appear in the tall mirror behind him. The glass showed only the empty room, the pale curtain moving gently in the night breeze. Emily felt her breath catch, her fingers tightening against the door as a chill ran through her spine. This was not possible. People had reflections. Everyone did. The man took one step forward. Just one. And the temperature in the room dropped so sharply that her breath became visible in the air. Look at me, he said softly, though she already was. There was something ancient in his voice, something that did not belong in this century or any century she knew. His eyes were not just watching her. They were searching her, as if trying to peel her apart layer by layer. Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. I'm Sully. I did not mean to come in here. I was just looking for a candle. Silence followed. Heavy. Unforgiving. Then his expression changed. Not anger. Not yet. Something far more dangerous. Confusion. No human should be able to see me, he said slowly, each word measured, deliberate. Emily blinked, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. I'm looking right at you, she answered, her voice trembling despite her effort to stay calm. For a moment, neither of them moved. And then, somewhere deep within the walls of the mansion, something stirred. A distant sound. Fast. Approaching. Not footsteps. Something sharper. Predatory. The man turned his head slightly, listening. Then his gaze snapped back to her, sharper than before. What are you? He asked. And this time, there was no mistaking it. The question was not curiosity. It was a warning. Emily did not answer him. She could not. Her mind was still trying to catch up to what her eyes had already accepted. The man standing in front of her had no reflection, no warmth, no presence that followed the rules of the world she knew. And yet he was real. Too real. Emily took a small step back before she could stop herself, her shoulder brushing against the edge of the door. The movement echoed louder than it should have in the silent room. His gaze dropped instantly to her feet, tracking even that tiny motion with unsettling precision. He noticed everything. That thought alone made her chest tighten. I asked you a question, he said, his voice quieter now, but heavier, like something pressing down on her from all sides. What are you? Emily shook her head quickly, her hands rising slightly in front of her as if to prove she meant no harm. I am nobody, she said, her voice unsteady but honest. I clean rooms. I change sheets. That is all. The words sounded small, even to her own ears. The man studied her for a long moment, as if weighing the truth inside her voice. Then something shifted in his expression again. Not disbelief, not anger, recognition. It flickered there for just a second, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Before Emily could process it, the distant sound from the hallway grew louder. Sharp, fast, closing in. The man's head turned slightly, his body going still, in a way that felt like a predator preparing to strike. They are coming, he said, almost to himself. Emily's heart skipped. "Who is coming?" she whispered. He did not answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer to her, so close now that she could see the faint lines beneath his eyes, the unnatural stillness of his skin, the way no breath moved his chest. "Listen to me carefully," he said, his voice low and controlled. "When they enter this room, you will say nothing. You will look at the floor. You will not speak unless I tell you to." Emily's throat tightened. "Why?" she asked, the words slipping out before she could stop it. His eyes darkened slightly. "Because if they believe you can see me," he said slowly, "they will not hesitate to remove you from this world." A chill ran through her entire body. Remove you. He did not say kill. He did not have to. The sound reached the door. Not footsteps. Something faster. The handle turned sharply, and the door swung open without warning. 3 figures entered in perfect silence. Tall, dressed in dark uniforms that seemed almost identical to the man in front of her, but there was something different about them. Their presence felt colder, sharper, more aggressive. The air in the room dropped again as they stepped inside. Without thinking, Emily lowered her gaze, just as he had instructed, but she could still see their feet. Black boots. Immaculate. Not a single drop of dust, despite the storm outside. They stopped several feet away. No one spoke for a moment. Then, one of them stepped forward. "My king," he said, his voice respectful, but edged with tension. Emily's breath caught. "My king." The words echoed in her mind, loud and undeniable. She had not imagined it. The man in front of her was not just something unnatural. He was something far worse. Something powerful. Ancient. The Vampire King. "You left your chambers," the man continued carefully. "We sensed a shift." Silence followed. Heavy again. Then the king spoke, his tone calm, controlled, as if nothing unusual had happened. "I am aware," he said. "Is there a problem?" The 3 figures hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. It was enough for Emily to notice. They were afraid of him. Truly afraid. "We detected a human presence on this floor. Another one," said his voice lower now. "That should not be possible." Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor, her entire body tense, waiting for the moment everything would fall apart, for the moment they would realize. The king did not move. "And yet," he said quietly, "you found nothing." The statement was not a question. It was a command wrapped in calm words. Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes, my king," the first one said slowly. "Nothing." The tension in the room shifted. Subtle, but real. The king had chosen his answer, and they were accepting it. "For now. Leave," he said. Just one word. No raised voice. No threat. But the effect was immediate. The 3 figures bowed their heads slightly, then turned and exited the room as silently as they had entered. The door closed behind them with a soft click. The moment it did, the pressure in the air lifted just enough for Emily to breathe again. But she did not move. Not yet. Not until she felt it. His presence shifting back toward her. Closer. Watching. Waiting. "You disobeyed your instincts," he said softly. Emily swallowed, finally lifting her eyes just enough to meet his gaze again. "I did not run," she admitted. Something dangerous flickered in his expression. Not anger. Not quite. Something deeper. "No," he said. "You stayed." He stepped even closer, close enough now that she could feel the cold radiating from him like winter air. "Humans always run," he continued. "They always look away." His eyes locked onto hers again, searching, sharper than before. "But you did not." A long silence stretched between them. Then, quieter now, almost like a realization forming out loud, he said, "And that is exactly why they must never know about you." Emily did not realize she had been holding her breath until it came back to her all at once, sharp and uneven. The room felt different now. Not safer, just quieter in a way that made everything else more dangerous. The door was closed again. The 3 figures were gone. But the truth they had left behind lingered in the air like a shadow that refused to disappear. "My king." The words echoed in her mind again and again, louder each time. Emily slowly straightened, her fingers still curled tightly at her sides. She should leave. That thought came. First, strong, urgent. She should apologize, walk out, pretend this never happened. That was what any normal person would do. But her feet did not move, because the man in front of her was still watching her. And now she knew exactly what he was. The Vampire King, Lucien Valle. Even the staff whispered his name in hushed tones when they thought no one was listening. Not a man, not something you spoke to, something you survived. Emily forced herself to meet his gaze fully this time, her heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her throat. You lied to them, she said quietly. The words slipped out before she could stop them. His expression did not change. I chose my words carefully, he replied. There is a difference. Emily swallowed, her pulse racing. They were looking for me. They were looking for a problem, he corrected. You would have become one. The calm certainty in his voice made her stomach tighten. Not fear, not entirely. Something else. The realization that her life had shifted in a way she could not undo. Why did you protect me? She asked. Silence followed. Not empty this time. Heavy with something unspoken. Lucian's gaze moved over her face again, slower now, more deliberate, as if he was searching for something he had almost found before. I have not decided if you are worth protecting, he said at last. The words should have cut, but they did not, because there was something else beneath them, something that sounded dangerously close to hesitation. Emily frowned slightly, confusion slipping through her fear. Then why did you send them away? He stepped closer again, close enough now that she had to tilt her head slightly to keep looking at him, close enough that the cold around him wrapped fully around her. Because, he said quietly, if they knew what you are, they would not ask questions first. Her breath caught. And you are? She asked. His eyes darkened just a fraction. I'm asking the questions. Emily hesitated. Everything inside her told her to stop talking, to stay quiet, to survive this moment and leave. But something else pushed forward, something stubborn, something she had carried her entire life. I told you, she said, her voice steadier now. I'm nobody. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lucian's expression shifted again. That same flicker from before. Recognition. This time, it lasted a second longer. No, he said softly. You are not. The certainty in his voice made something in her chest tighten. You looked at me, he continued. You saw me without hesitation. He moved slightly, just enough for the mirror behind him to come into view again. Empty. Completely empty. Do you understand what that means? Emily shook her head slowly. No, it means, he said, his voice dropping lower. You are either something very rare. He paused, just long enough for the silence to press in again. Or something very dangerous. The words settled between them. Emily felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold in the room. Dangerous. No one had ever called her that before. Invisible. Replaceable. Weak. Those were the words she knew. Not this. I did not feel dangerous, she said quietly. Lucian's gaze did not soften. That is what makes it worse. Another silence stretched between them. This one longer. He was thinking. She could see it now. Not just observing her. Measuring her. Weighing something unseen. Finally, he turned slightly, walking a few steps away as if putting distance between them would help him see her more clearly. Tell me something, he said without looking back. Have you always seen things others do not? Emily hesitated. The question hit something deep, something she had spent years ignoring, dismissing, pretending was not real. Sometimes, she admitted slowly, when I was younger, his head tilted slightly, just enough to show he was listening. What kind of things? Emily looked down at her hands for a moment, then back at him. Shadows that moved when nothing else did. Voices when no one was there. Faces in places they should not be. She swallowed. But I thought it was just my imagination. Lucian turned back to her fully now. And this time, there was no confusion in his expression. No hesitation. Only clarity. It was not, he said. The certainty in his voice made the room feel even smaller, even colder. Emily felt her breath falter again. Then what is happening to me? She asked. Lucian held her gaze for a long moment before answering. That, he said quietly, is exactly what I intend to find out. Emily did not realize how quiet the mansion had become until Lucian moved. the faint creak of the wooden floor beneath. His step echoed through the room like a warning. Everything else had fallen into a stillness that felt unnatural, as if the entire house was listening, watching, waiting. Emily's pulse had not slowed since the moment she entered the room. If anything, it grew louder with every second she remained here. "You intend to find out," she repeated softly, the words lingering on her tongue as if testing their weight. "What does that mean for me?" Lucian did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked past her, slow and deliberate, his presence brushing against her like a wave of cold air. When he reached the door, he paused, his hand resting lightly on the handle but not opening it. "It means," he said without turning, "you are not leaving this floor tonight." The statement landed heavier than any threat. Emily's breath caught. "I have to go back," she said quickly, taking a step forward before she could stop herself. "If they notice I'm gone, I will lose my job." Lucian's head tilted slightly, just enough to show he had heard her, but not enough to acknowledge the concern. "Your employment is no longer relevant," he said calmly. The simplicity of his tone made her chest tighten. "It is relevant to me," she replied, a hint of urgency slipping into her voice. "I need that job. I need the money." That finally made him turn. Slowly, his gaze settled on her again, sharper now, more focused. "You are standing in a room where a single word from me could erase your existence from every memory in this house," he said quietly. "And you're concerned about your wages." Emily swallowed hard, her hands clenching slightly at her sides. "Because that is my life," she said. "That is all I have." For a moment, something flickered across his face again. Not confusion this time, something closer to understanding. But it vanished just as quickly, replaced by the same controlled stillness. "Your life changed the moment you opened that door," he said. "You simply have not caught up to it yet." The words settled deep, unavoidable. Emily felt it then. The shift he had been talking about. Not something outside, something inside her. Like a line had been crossed without her permission. "You do not get to decide that for me," she said quietly, though her voice lacked the strength she wanted it to carry. Lucian stepped closer again, not aggressively, not threatening, but with a certainty that made resistance feel meaningless. "I already have," he replied. Before she could respond, a faint sound echoed through the hallway again. Softer this time, slower, but deliberate, not the same as before. Not guards, something else. Lucian's expression changed instantly. Not alarm, not fear, recognition. His gaze shifted toward the door, his entire posture sharpening in a way that made the air feel tighter. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice dropping into something more commanding, more absolute. Emily did not argue this time. She moved without thinking, stepping slightly behind him as her heart began to race again. The sound stopped just outside the door. Then a soft knock. Not loud, not urgent, but controlled, precise. Lucian did not move to open it immediately. "Who is it?" he asked, his tone even, but edged with something colder beneath. A pause followed. Then a voice answered from the other side. Smooth, calm, but carrying a weight that made Emily's stomach drop. "You know who it is," the voice said. "Open the door." Lucian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. For the first time since she had met him, Emily saw something close to tension in his expression. Not fear, but resistance. He did not want whoever was outside to enter. That realization sent a new wave of unease through her. If something could make the Vampire King hesitate, then whatever stood beyond that door was not something she wanted to meet. Lucian glanced back at her briefly, just for a second, but it was enough. "Do not speak," he said quietly, "no matter what happens." Then he turned and opened the door. The figure who stepped inside did not rush, did not hesitate. He moved with the same unnatural grace as Lucian, but there was something colder about him, sharper. His eyes swept the room once, quickly, taking in every detail before settling on Lucian. "You have been difficult to find tonight," he said calmly. His gaze flickered, just for a fraction of a second, toward Emily. It was brief, almost nothing, but it was enough to make her breath stop, because in that single glance she felt it. He saw her, not like Lucian had, not with confusion, not with curiosity, but with immediate understanding. And something else. Interest. And it seems the man continued slowly, his eyes returning to Lucian, that you have found something far more interesting instead. The room fell silent again. But this silence was different. Heavier. More dangerous. Because now, Emily understood something she had not before. Lucian was not the only one who knew she should not exist in this world. And this new presence had no reason to protect her. Emily did not move. She could not. The man who had just entered the room carried a presence that felt sharper than anything she had experienced so far, like standing too close to a blade you could not see but knew could cut. His eyes lingered on her for only a second, but that second was enough to send a cold wave through her entire body. He knew. Not in the way Lucian had known. Not with hesitation. Not with confusion. This man understood exactly what she was, or at least what she represented. And that made him dangerous in a way she could not fully explain. Lucian stepped slightly to the side, placing himself more directly between Emily and the newcomer. The movement was subtle, but deliberate. Protective. You should not be here, Lucian said, his voice calm, but carrying a warning beneath it. The other man smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. That is interesting, he replied, because I could say the same to you. He took a slow step forward, his gaze never leaving Lucian's face. You left your chambers without informing the council. That alone would raise questions. His voice was smooth, controlled, but every word felt like it was placed with precision. Like a test. Like a trap waiting to be triggered. Emily's heart pounded as she listened, her mind racing to keep up with the shift in tension. Council. That word settled heavily in her chest. This was not just about one powerful figure anymore. This was something larger. A structure. A system. And she had stepped into the center of it by accident. There is no council matter that requires your presence on this floor tonight, Lucian said. His tone had changed slightly. Colder now. More distant. The man's eyes flickered again, briefly, toward Emily. This time, the look lingered just a fraction longer. Curious. Calculating. And yet, he said slowly, I sense something unusual. Something human. The word hung in the air. Emily felt her pulse spike, her breath catching as she fought the instinct to react. Do not speak. Lucian's warning echoed her mind. Do not move. She forced herself to stay still, her gaze lowered just enough to avoid drawing attention, but not so much that she lost awareness of what was happening. You are mistaken, Lucian replied evenly. Am I? The man said softly. He took another step forward. Closer now. Close enough that Emily could feel the tension tightening like a wire stretched too far. You have ruled for centuries, the man continued. You know better than anyone that nothing truly goes unnoticed in this house. His eyes narrowed slightly, and this time he did not hide the direction of his gaze. He was looking at her again, directly, deliberately, especially not something that should not exist. The words landed like a blade. Emily's fingers curled slightly at her sides, but she held her ground. She did not speak. She did not move. But inside, everything tightened. Lucian shifted again, just enough to block the man's line of sight. You are overstepping, he said quietly. This time, there was no mistaking the authority in his voice. The air in the room seemed to respond to it, pressing down harder, heavier. The man stopped, not because he had to, because he chose to. A slow smile returned to his face, though it carried a different meaning now. Not amusement, recognition. I see, he said. So it is true. Silence followed. Thick. Dangerous. You have found something, he continued, his voice lowering, becoming more intent. Or perhaps something has found you. Lucian did not respond, but his stillness spoke louder than any words. The man's expression sharpened, interest flashing more clearly now. Do you remember the last time this happened? He asked. The last time a human crossed into something they were never meant to see. Emily's breath caught again. The question was not meant for her, but she felt it anyway, like a shadow brushing too close. Lucian's voice came low and controlled. That was a long time ago, and yet, the man replied, the consequences lasted far longer. He tilted his head slightly, studying Lucian with new intensity. You lost more than power that night. The words hung in the air, heavy with something unspoken, something older than anything Emily could understand. Lucian's expression hardened. Not anger, not fully, but something close to it, something buried deep. This is not the same, he said. The man's smile faded just slightly. Is it not? He asked. Then, slowly, deliberately, he stepped to the side. And this time, Lucian did not move fast enough to block him completely. For just a moment, their line of sight cleared. The man looked directly at Emily. Not a glance, not a test, a decision. Look at me, he said softly. The command was gentle, but absolute. It pulled at something inside her, something instinctive, something she did not understand. Emily tried to resist. She knew she should, but her body did not respond the way she expected. Slowly, almost against her will, her gaze lifted. Their eyes met. And in that instant, everything changed. The man's expression stilled. Completely. No curiosity. No calculation. Just certainty. Yes, he whispered. You can see. The room seemed to collapse inward around them. The truth was no longer hidden. It was no longer a possibility. It was real. And now, it belonged to more than just one king. The moment the words left his lips, the air in the room shifted again, heavier than before, as if the truth itself had weight. Emily felt it press against her chest, making it harder to breathe, harder to think. You can see. He had said it like a confirmation, not a question. Like something long suspected had finally revealed itself. Lucian moved instantly, faster than her eyes could follow. One moment he stood a few feet away, the next he was between them again, his presence cutting the space like a wall of ice. That is enough, Lucian said, his voice no longer calm, no longer neutral. It carried authority now, absolute and undeniable. The other man did not step back. He did not look threatened. If anything, his expression grew more focused, more intent. No, he replied softly. It is not enough. It is only the beginning. His gaze remained fixed on Emily, even with Lucian blocking most of his view. Do you understand what she is? He continued. What this means? Lucian's jaw tightened slightly. I understand more than you think, he said. Then you understand that this cannot be contained, the man said. Not for long. Silence stretched between them, sharp and fragile. Emily stood frozen behind Lucian, her heart racing so hard it felt like it might betray her. She had never felt so exposed in her life. Not even when she had nothing. Not even when she had been invisible to everyone around her. Because now, she was the opposite. Now she was seen. And that felt far more dangerous. Leave, Lucian said again, quieter this time, but no less commanding. The man tilted his head slightly, studying him. You are protecting her, he said. Not a question, a realization. You have known her for less than an hour. Lucian did not respond. That alone was an answer. A slow smile returned to the man's face, but this one held no amusement at all. Only calculation. That is unlike you, he continued. You do not protect what you do not understand. His eyes flickered again, briefly, toward Emily. Unless you already know something I do not. The accusation lingered in the air. Lucian's expression hardened. You are overstepping again, he said. The man let out a quiet breath, almost thoughtful. Perhaps, he admitted, but I'm not wrong. He took a single step back this time, just enough to create a fraction of distance. You felt it, did you not, he said, the moment she looked at you. Emily's breath caught again. She had felt something. She just had not understood it. Not until now. Lucian's silence confirmed it. There it is, the man said softly. You cannot deny it. He turned slightly, pacing once across the room as if considering something larger than just a moment in front of him. It has been centuries since anything like this has appeared, he continued. And the last time it did, it nearly destroyed everything we built. Emily felt a chill run deeper this time, not just from the cold, but from the weight of his words. Destroyed everything. She did not know what that meant, but she knew it was not small. This is not the same, Lucian said again, though his voice lacked the certainty it held before. The man stopped pacing. Slowly, he looked back at him. You said that before, he replied, and you were wrong. The silence that followed was heavier than anything that had come before it. Not tension, Not threat. Something older. Something buried. Then, the man's attention shifted again. Back to Emily. Fully this time. Tell me, he said, his voice lowering, becoming almost gentle in a way that felt more dangerous than any threat. What did you see when you looked at him? The question pulled at her again, like a thread she could not escape. Emily hesitated, her hands tightening slightly. She should not answer. She knew that. But something inside her responded anyway. I saw him, she said quietly. Not like the others. Not like a shadow. Her voice grew steadier as she spoke. I saw everything. The man's eyes sharpened. Everything, he repeated. Lucian's presence shifted beside her, tense now, as if he was anticipating something. What does that mean? The man pressed. Emily swallowed. The words came before she could stop them. I saw that he was alone. The room went completely still. Not just quiet. Still. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Lucian did not speak. He did not move. But something about him changed in that instant. Something deeper than anything that had come before. The man noticed it too. Of course he did. His expression shifted again, slower this time, more deliberate. Alone, he repeated softly. Then, a faint smile returned. Not mocking. Not amused. Understanding. Now that, he said quietly, is far more dangerous than I expected. Emily's breath faltered as the weight of his words settled over her. Because for the first time since this began, she realized something terrifying. It was not just that she could see the Vampire King. It was what she saw when she did that might change everything. The silence that followed her words did not break. It deepened. It settled into the walls, into the floor, into the space between every breath. Emily immediately wished she could take it back. Not because it was wrong, but because of how both men reacted to it. Lucian did not move, but something in him shifted, something subtle yet unmistakable, like a crack forming beneath a frozen surface. And the other man saw it. Of course he did. His faint smile did not fade this time. It sharpened. You see, he said quietly, his voice almost thoughtful now. This is exactly why she cannot remain here. Lucian's gaze snapped toward him instantly, colder than before. That is not your decision, he said. The man tilted his head slightly, unfazed. It will not remain yours for long, he replied. Not once the council learns what has happened tonight. Emily's heart dropped. The council again. That word felt heavier now, more real, more dangerous. She was no longer just a mistake in the wrong room. She was something that could reach beyond these walls. Something that could be judged, decided, removed. They will not learn anything, Lucian said, his voice low, controlled, but carrying a weight that pressed against the air itself. The man studied him carefully, as if measuring the truth behind those words. You believe you can hide this, he said slowly. From them. He glanced briefly toward Emily again, then back to Lucian. From everyone. A pause followed. Then his expression darkened, just slightly. You're not the only one who felt it tonight. The statement landed like a quiet explosion. Lucian's posture shifted, not visibly to most, but Emily felt it. A tension, a calculation. The man took another slow step forward, closing the distance just enough to make the room feel smaller. There are others who will begin to ask questions, he continued. Others who will notice that something has changed. His eyes flickered toward Emily again, this time with no attempt to hide it. And when they do, they will not ask permission before they act. Emily felt her throat tighten. She could feel the truth in his words. This was not something that would stay contained, not something that would fade if ignored. It was already spreading, already becoming something larger than her. Lucian remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly he spoke. Then they will answer to me, he said. The certainty in his voice was absolute. But this time it was not enough. The man's expression did not change. You are one ruler, he said. Not the only one. The weight of that statement settled heavily in the room. Emily's mind struggled to process it. Not the only one. There were others like him. Others with power. Others who could decide her fate. You remember what happened the last time a human stood where she stands? The man continued. Do not pretend you have forgotten. Lucian's eyes darkened. Not with anger. With memory. And for the first time, Emily saw it clearly. Something old. Something painful. Something that had not healed. That was different, Lucian said, though the words came slower now. Less certain. Was it, the man replied. Or are you simply hoping it is? Silence fell again. But this silence carried something new. Not just tension. A decision forming. The man turned slightly, as if preparing to leave. But he paused at the door, his hand resting lightly against the frame. I will give you time, he said without looking back. Not because you deserve it. A brief pause. But because I am curious to see how this ends. He turned his head, just enough for his gaze to land on Emily one final time. For your sake, he added quietly, I hope you understand what you have become. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a soft, final sound. And just like that, the room changed again. The pressure lifted slightly, but not enough to feel safe. Not enough to breathe easily. Emily stood there, her entire body tense, her mind racing. The silence between her and Lucian stretched longer than before. He did not look at her immediately. He remained facing the door, as if listening for something beyond it, as if confirming they were truly alone. Finally, he turned back to her. His expression was no longer unreadable. It was clear now, focused, decided. Everything changes now, he said quietly. Emily swallowed, her voice barely steady. Because I can see you. He shook his head once. No, he said. Because now someone else can see you. The words hit harder than anything before. Emily felt it settle deep, unavoidable and final. She was no longer hidden, no longer a secret. She had been seen. And in this world, being seen was far more dangerous than being invisible ever was. Emily stood frozen as his words echoed in her mind, repeating over and over until they no longer sounded like a warning, but a sentence already passed. Now someone else can see you. The meaning settled slowly, like cold water rising inch by inch. She was no longer an accident hidden in a locked room. She was something exposed, something that others would come looking for. Her chest tightened as she finally found her voice again. Then I have to leave, she said, the words coming out faster than she expected. Right now, before anyone else notices. Lucian did not respond immediately. He watched her instead, his gaze steady, unreadable, as if measuring the thought itself rather than the words. No, he said at last. The single word stopped her completely. No, she repeated, disbelief creeping into her voice. You just said others will come, that they will ask questions. How does staying here help me survive that? Lucian stepped closer, his presence filling the space again, not threatening, but undeniable. Because leaving would not make you disappear, he said. It would make you easier to find. Emily shook her head, confusion mixing with rising panic. I am nobody outside this house, she insisted. I take the bus to work. I rent a small room. I do not even have family here. There is nothing for them to track. Lucian's expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened. You are thinking like a human, he said quietly. They are not. The words landed harder than she expected. Emily felt her breath catch again. Then what am I supposed to do? She asked, her voice softer now, but more desperate. Stay here and wait for them to decide what I am. Lucian did not answer right away. He turned slightly, pacing once across the room, his movements slower now, more deliberate, as if each step carried weight. You will not wait, he said finally. You will remain under my protection. Emily let out a short, disbelieving breath. Protection, she repeated. You said yourself you have not decided what I am. Why would you protect something you do not understand? Lucian stopped moving. Slowly, he turned back to her. Because, he said, they will not try to understand you at all. The certainty in his voice sent a chill through her. Emily swallowed, her hands tightening slightly. And you will, she said. It was not quite a question. Lucian held her gaze for a long moment before answering. I will decide what you are before they do, he said. The words should have reassured her. Instead, they made something uneasy twist in her chest. Because that was not safety. That was control. Emily took a small step back, her eyes narrowing slightly. That does not sound like protection, she said. That sounds like a decision I do not get to be part of. Lucian did not deny it. You are already part of something you did not choose, he said. This is simply the part where you survive it. Silence followed, heavier than before. Emily looked away for a moment, her mind racing, searching for something that still made sense. A way out, a way back to the life she understood. But nothing felt solid. Anymore. Not after what she had seen. Not after what she had been told. If I stay, she said slowly, what happens to me? Lucian's answer came without hesitation. You learn, he said. You stay close. You do not leave this floor without me. Emily's eyes widened slightly. That is not staying. That is being trapped. It is being alive, he corrected. The calm certainty in his voice made it clear he believed it completely. Emily felt something inside her resist, something stubborn, something that had kept her going long before this night. You do not know that, she said. You do not know what they will do. Lucian's gaze darkened slightly. I know exactly what they will do, he said, and that is why you will not face them alone. The words settled between them, heavier now, carrying something deeper than authority. Not kindness. Not exactly, but something close to it. Emily hesitated, caught between fear and something else she could not fully name. Then, quietly, she asked, and if I refuse? Lucian did not move, did not hesitate. Then you will not survive long enough to regret it, he said. The honesty of it left no room for argument, no space for illusion. Emily felt her breath falter again, her thoughts colliding with a reality she could not escape. Stay and lose control. Leave and lose everything. The choice did not feel like a choice at all. Lucian watched her carefully, as if he could see the decision forming before she spoke it. You do not have to trust me, he said quietly. You only have to understand what is coming. Emily lifted her eyes to meet his again, searching his expression for something she could hold on to. Something human, something certain, but all she found was truth. Cold, unavoidable, and beneath it, something else, something quieter. You said I saw you, she said slowly. Not like the others. Lucian's gaze did not waver. Yes. Emily swallowed, her voice softer now. Then tell me something. A brief pause. What do you see when you look at me? For the first time since this began, Lucian did not answer immediately. His silence stretched, filled with something unspoken, something he was choosing whether to reveal. And that alone made Emily realize one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever he saw when he looked at her, it mattered more than anything. She had said so far. Lucian did not look away from her. The silence stretched long enough that Emily almost thought he would refuse to answer. But something in his expression shifted, slow and deliberate, as if he had reached a decision he could no longer avoid. I see a disruption, he said at last. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Emily frowned slightly, confusion flickering across her face. That is not an answer, she said. Lucian stepped closer, his gaze still locked onto hers, searching, measuring, as if each second revealed something new. It is the only answer that matters, he replied. You're not part of this world, and yet you can interact with it in ways that should not be possible. Emily felt her chest tighten. That does not make me dangerous, she said. Lucian's expression hardened slightly. It makes you unpredictable, he said. And in this world, that is far worse. The words settled heavily between them. Emily looked away for a moment, her thoughts racing. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Not human. The labels were stacking faster than she could understand them. You said there was another time, she said slowly, lifting her gaze back to him. Another human like me. Lucian did not respond immediately, but this time his silence felt different. Not avoidance. Memory. Yes, he said finally. There was. Emily took a small step closer, drawn in despite herself. What happened to them, she asked. The question hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. Lucian's gaze shifted slightly, not away from her, but inward, as if he was looking through time instead of space. She should not have existed either, he said quietly. Emily's breath caught. She could see what others could not, Lucian continued. She spoke to things no human should understand. She stood where you were standing now. The room felt colder as he spoke, the air tightening with each word. And what happened? Emily asked again, softer this time. Lucian's jaw tightened slightly. The council found out, he said. Emily felt her stomach drop. And Lucian looked at her fully again, his expression no longer distant. Present. Sharp. They decided she was a threat, he said. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was not. Emily felt her pulse spike. So they killed her, she said, the conclusion forming before she could stop it. Lucian did not. Answer right away. And that silence told her everything. You let them, she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. The moment they did, she felt it. The shift. The air in the room dropped sharply, colder than before. Lucian's gaze darkened, something dangerous flickering beneath the surface. You assume I had a choice, he said quietly. Emily swallowed, realizing too late what she had said. But she did not back down. You are the king, she said. You just told them to leave. You said they would answer to you. Lucian stepped closer again, the distance between them closing in an instant. Power does not mean absolute control, he said, his voice low, edged with something sharper now. There are laws older than me, forces that do not bend, even for a king. Emily's breath faltered. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument, but also left no room for comfort. Then what happened to her? She asked again, more quietly now. Lucian held her gaze for a long moment before answering. She did not survive what came after, he said. The words were measured, controlled, but there was something beneath them, something heavier than simple fact. Emily felt it, the weight of it, the truth he was not saying out loud. That is not the whole story, she said softly. Lucian's expression did not change, but his silence stretched again, and this time, it confirmed her suspicion. You knew her, Emily said. Not a question, a realization. Something flickered in Lucian's eyes. Brief, almost invisible, but it was enough. Yes, he said. The single word carried more weight than anything else he had said so far. Emily felt her chest tighten. And you could not save her, she said. Lucian did not respond. He did not need to. The answer was already there. In his silence, in his expression, in the way the air itself seemed to hold that truth. Emily looked at him differently now. Not just as something powerful, not just as something dangerous, but as something that had failed before, something that had lost. And now you think I am the same, she said. Lucian's gaze sharpened again. I think you are connected, he said, whether you understand it or not. Emily shook her head slightly. I am not her, she said. Lucian took a slow breath, though it did not move his chest the way it should have. That is what makes this more complicated, he said. The words settled heavily between them. Emily felt the truth of it, even if she did not fully understand why. Because whatever had happened before, whatever had been lost, it was not finished. It had not ended. It had come back. In her. And that meant one thing she could not ignore. This was not just her story anymore. It never had been. Emily felt the weight of his words settle deep inside her, heavier than anything that had come before. Connected. The idea echoed in her mind, refusing to fade. She was not just a girl who walked into the wrong room. She was something tied to a past she did not remember, a story she had never lived but somehow carried within her. Then tell me the truth, she said quietly, her voice steadier now, no longer just afraid but searching. Who was she? Lucian did not answer immediately. His gaze lingered on her, as if deciding how much of the truth she could bear. Then, slowly he spoke. Her name was Eleanor Voss. The name hung in the air, unfamiliar yet strangely heavy. Emily felt something stir deep inside her chest, faint but undeniable, like a memory that was not hers trying to surface. Voss, she repeated softly. That is your name. Lucian nodded once. She was my queen. The room seemed to fall silent in a different way this time, as if even the walls recognized the weight of that truth. Emily's breath caught. Your queen, she echoed. She was human, Lucian continued. The only human ever bound to a vampire king. Emily's heart began to race again, faster now, louder. That is not possible, she said instinctively. Lucian's gaze did not waver. Neither are you, he replied. The words struck deeper than she expected. Emily swallowed, her thoughts colliding. What happened to her? She asked, though she already feared the answer. Lucian turned slightly, His gaze shifting away for the first time, as if looking directly at her made the memory sharper. She saw things no one else could, he said. Not just vampires. Not just shadows. She saw the truth behind them. The things even we do not fully understand. Emily felt a chill run through her, stronger than before. Like me, she whispered. Lucian did not deny it. Yes, he said. Like you. The silence that followed was thick, filled with something unspoken. The council believed her existence would destabilize everything, he continued. They feared what she could become. Emily's hands tightened slightly. So they decided to destroy her, she said. Lucian's jaw tightened. They decided to control her, he corrected. But control failed. Emily's breath caught. What does that mean? Lucian turned back to her, his expression darker now, heavier. It means they tried to bind her power, he said. To limit what she could see. To restrict what she could influence. Emily felt her chest tighten. And it did not work. No, Lucian said quietly. It made things worse. The words settled like a storm gathering. She began to change, he continued. Not into something evil. Not into something monstrous. But into something they could not predict. Emily felt the same word echo again. Unpredictable. And they feared that, she said. Lucian nodded once. They always fear what they cannot control. Emily swallowed, her voice softer now. So what happened in the end? Lucian's gaze held hers for a long moment before he answered. They sentenced her, he said. The words were simple, but they carried something final. Emily's breath faltered. And you could not stop them, she said. Lucian did not respond. He did not need to. The truth was already there. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then how am I connected to her? Emily asked, her voice almost a whisper now. Lucian took a slow step closer, his eyes searching hers again, deeper this time. That is what I need to understand, he said. Because when you looked at me, it felt the same. Emily's heart skipped. The same as what? She asked. Lucian's voice lowered. The same as the first time she saw me, he said. The room seemed to tighten around them. Emily felt something shift again, deeper this time, like a door inside her opening just slightly. That is not possible, she said, though her voice lacked conviction now. Lucian did not argue. And yet, he said quietly, you are standing here. Emily shook her head slightly, trying to hold on to something real, something she understood. I'm not her, she said again. Lucian stepped even closer, his presence overwhelming now, but not threatening. Not entirely. No, he said. You are not. A brief pause. Then his voice softened just slightly. But you carry something of hers. The words sent a ripple through her, deeper than fear, deeper than confusion. Something ancient. Something unfinished. Emily felt her breath catch as a strange sensation flickered through her mind. Not a full memory. Not a clear image. Just a feeling. Standing in the same room. Looking at the same man. But not as a stranger. As something more. She blinked, the sensation fading as quickly as it came. What was that? She whispered. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly, his attention sharpening instantly. What did you feel? He asked. Emily hesitated, her heart racing again. I do not know, she said. It was like, I have been here before. The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. Lucian went completely still, and for the first time since this began, there was no control in his expression. Only something raw, something unguarded. That is not possible, he said, though his voice was no longer certain. Emily met his gaze, her own uncertainty mirrored back at him. You said that already, she replied softly. And this time, neither of them believed it. The air between them remained fragile, as if one wrong word could shatter whatever balance still held the moment together. Emily could still feel it, that strange echo in her chest, like a memory trying to breathe through her, but failing to take shape. It left her unsettled, unsteady, like she was standing in two places at once, and neither felt real. Lucian had not moved. He was still watching her, but not the way he had before. Not with calculation. Not with control. There was something else in his gaze now. Something quieter. Something that did not belong to a king. You felt it again, he said, his voice lower than before, almost careful. Emily nodded slowly, her fingers curling slightly at her sides. "It is like something is trying to come through," she said, "but it cannot." Lucian took a slow step closer, his attention sharpening. "Do not force it," he said immediately. "If it is connected to her, it will not come gently." The warning settled into her, but it did not stop the feeling. It lingered, faint but persistent, like a door that had been unlocked but not opened. "You said they tried to control her," Emily said, her voice steady despite the tension building inside her. "What if that is what is happening to me?" Lucian's expression darkened slightly. "Then we do not let it happen again," he said. The certainty in his tone was immediate, but this time it was different. Not authority, not command, something closer to resolve. Emily studied him for a moment, searching for something she could trust. "You say that like you have a choice this time," she said quietly. Lucian did not answer right away, and that silence told her enough. Before she could press further, a sudden sound broke through the stillness of the room. Not from the hallway, not from the door, from deeper inside the mansion. A sharp, distant cry. Small, frightened, human. Emily turned instinctively toward the sound, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. "What was that?" she asked, her voice tightening. Lucian's head lifted slightly, his focus shifting instantly. His entire posture changed, not tense in the way it had been before, but alert in a different way. "Protective. Stay here," he said immediately. Emily shook her head without thinking. "That sounded like a child," she said. "Someone is hurt." Lucian's gaze snapped back to her, sharper now. "This is not your concern. It is if someone needs help," she replied, her voice firmer than before. The words came from instinct, from something deeper than fear. Lucian studied her for a brief moment, as if weighing something again. Then the sound came again, louder this time, a small voice, breaking under fear. Emily did not wait this time. She moved toward the door. Lucian caught her wrist before she could reach it. Not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her. "You do not understand what you are walking into," he said. Emily met his gaze, her heart racing, but her expression steady. "Then explain it to me while we walk," she said. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then something shifted again. Lucian released her wrist. Not because he agreed, because he had decided something else. "Stay behind me," he said. Emily nodded once. That was enough. Lucian opened the door, and they stepped into the hallway together. The mansion no longer felt silent. It felt alive. The air carried tension now, subtle but spreading, like something had disturbed the balance of the entire place. The cry came again, echoing from the far end of the corridor. This time it was clearer. A young boy, no more than 8 or 9 years old. Emily's chest tightened. "We have to hurry," she said. Lucian did not respond, but his pace quickened, his movements smooth and silent as he moved down the hallway. Emily followed closely behind, her senses sharper now, more aware of everything around her. The flickering lights, the shadows that seemed to move just slightly out of sync, the cold that clung to the walls. They turned a corner, and the scene revealed itself. A small boy stood near the end of the corridor, pressed against the wall, his body trembling. His clothes were too fine for a human child. Dark velvet, silver buttons, his skin pale, too pale. Emily slowed instinctively. Something about him felt wrong. Not in a way that made her afraid, in a way that made her aware. The boy looked up, his eyes wide, filled with panic. And when his gaze landed on Lucian, something changed instantly. Not fear, recognition. "Father," the boy said, his voice shaking. The word hit the air like a stone dropped into still water. Emily froze. Lucian did not. He moved forward immediately, his presence shifting again, softer this time, but no less powerful. "What happened?" Lucian asked, his voice controlled, but carrying something deeper beneath it. The boy's breathing was uneven, his small hands clenched tightly at his sides. "I saw something," he said, "in the shadows." Emily felt her chest tighten again. Shadows. The word echoed differently now. The boy's eyes shifted past Lucian and landed directly on her. For a brief moment, everything stopped. The boy stared at her, not confused, not uncertain, but with the same clarity she had seen before, the same recognition, the same impossible awareness. She is here, the boy whispered. The word sent a cold wave through Emily's entire body, because she understood it instantly. He was not talking about her. And for the first time since this began, Emily realized something far worse than being seen. Something else in this house could see her too. The moment the boy spoke, the hallway seemed to lose what little warmth it had left. She is here. The words did not sound like fear alone. They carried recognition, certainty, and something else that made Emily's chest tighten. Awareness. Lucian did not turn immediately, but Emily saw it. The shift in him. Subtle. Dangerous. His attention sharpened, in a way that made the air feel thinner, harder to breathe. What did you see? Lucian asked, his voice steady, but quieter than before, as if even sound itself could provoke something unseen. The boy's small hands trembled as he pointed down the corridor behind him. In the shadows, he said again. She was standing there, watching me. Emily felt her pulse spike. She followed the direction of his hand, her eyes tracing the dim stretch of hallway where the lights flickered unevenly against the walls. At first, she saw nothing. Just darkness. Just shadow. Then something shifted. Not full movement. Not something clear. Just a distortion. Like the darkness itself had folded inward for a brief second before settling again. Emily's breath caught. Do you see it? Lucian asked quietly, without looking at her. Emily hesitated, then nodded. Yes, she whispered. The word felt heavier than it should have. Lucian turned then, slowly, his gaze following hers toward the end of the corridor. His expression did not change, but his presence did. The air grew colder, sharper, as if something within him had awakened. Stay where you are, he said, this time not just to Emily, but to the boy as well. The child did not argue. He pressed himself further against the wall, his eyes wide, fixed on the same spot Emily was watching. Emily felt it again. That strange pull in her chest. Not fear. Not exactly. Something deeper. Familiar. Like a thread connecting her to whatever stood in that shadow. It is not just a shadow, she said softly, almost to herself. Lucian's gaze flickered toward her briefly. What do you mean? He asked. Emily took a small step forward before she could stop herself. The air shifted immediately, colder, heavier, like resistance. But she did not stop. It feels aware, she said. Like it knows I am here. The moment the words left her mouth, the shadow moved again. This time, more clearly. Not fully visible. Not fully formed. But enough. Enough to reveal something impossible. A shape. A figure. Standing where there should have been nothing. The boy let out a small, frightened sound, but Lucian lifted his hand slightly, silencing him without a word. His focus was entirely forward now. This is not supposed to be possible, Lucian said quietly. Emily felt her heart pound harder. You said that before, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The shadow shifted again, and then, slowly it began to take form. Not solid. Not real in the way a body should be, but visible enough to understand what it was. A woman. Tall. Still. Her features blurred, as if they existed just beyond the edge of reality. But her presence was unmistakable. Ancient. Heavy. Watching. Emily felt the pull in her chest tighten suddenly, sharp enough to make her gasp. The world around her seemed to tilt for a brief second. Her vision narrowing as something flooded her mind. Not images. Not fully. Just fragments. A hand reaching toward her. A voice she could not hear but somehow understood. A feeling of standing in the same place, but not as herself. Her knees nearly gave out. Lucian moved instantly, his hand catching her arm before she could fall. Do not look directly at it, he said, his voice sharper now, more urgent than before. But it was too late. Emily was already looking. The figure's head tilted slightly, and though its face remained unclear, Emily knew. It was looking directly back at her. Not Lucian. Not at the boy. At her. The connection snapped into place with terrifying clarity. The pressure in her chest surged, stronger now, overwhelming. And then, for the briefest moment, the figure became clear. Not fully, but enough. Enough for Emily to see the outline of face. And in that face, she saw something that made her breath stop completely. It was not unfamiliar. It was not distant. It was her. Not exactly, but close enough to shatter any doubt. The same eyes, the same shape, the same presence, distorted by something older, something broken. Emily stumbled back, her voice catching in her throat. "That is not possible," she whispered. Lucian's grip tightened slightly on her arm, steadying her. But his gaze remained locked on the figure. "No," he said quietly. "It is not." The shadow flickered. The form wavered. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it collapsed back into darkness. Gone. The hallway fell silent again. But the silence was different now. Not empty. Not calm. It carried the echo of what had just happened. The weight of it. The reality that could not be undone. Emily's breathing was uneven, her mind struggling to catch up. "That was her," she said, her voice trembling now. Was it not? Lucian did not answer immediately. But this time, his silence was not uncertainty. It was confirmation, and that made everything worse. Because if that was truly Eleanor Voss, then she had not disappeared. She had not been erased. She had remained, watching, waiting, and now, she had seen Emily too. The hallway remained still long after the shadow vanished, as if the space itself was afraid to move too soon. Emily could still feel it in her chest, that pull, that connection, like something had reached through time and touched her directly. Her breathing was uneven, her hands trembling slightly at her sides as she tried to steady herself. "She saw me," she said quietly, the realization settling deeper with every word. Lucian did not deny it. His gaze remained fixed on the empty space where the figure had stood, his expression darker than anything she had seen before. Not confusion, not uncertainty, recognition. "Yes," he said. The single word carried weight. Final. Emily swallowed, forcing herself to focus. "Then she's not gone," she said. "She is still here." Lucian finally turned to her, his eyes searching hers again, but this time with something new beneath the surface. Not just caution, not just control, something closer to acceptance. "She is bound to this place," he said, "to what remains of what they did to her." Emily felt a chill run through her. "Then why did she appear now?" she asked. Lucian stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Because of you," he said. The truth landed immediately. Emily felt it settle into her, unavoidable and clear. "She reacted to me," she said slowly. Lucian nodded once. "And you reacted to her." A silence followed, but this one was different. Not filled with fear, filled with understanding. The pieces were no longer scattered. They were beginning to form something complete. Emily looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly, then back at him. "You said they tried to control her," she said. "To bind what she could see." Lucian's expression tightened slightly. "Yes." Emily took a slow breath. "Then maybe they did not fail," she said. "Maybe they only delayed it." Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly, his focus sharpening instantly. "Explain," he said. Emily hesitated for only a second before continuing. If she was bound here, if she could not leave, then whatever she was became trapped, she said. "But if I can see her, and she can see me," her voice softened, but did not lose its clarity. "Then maybe I'm not just connected to her. Maybe I'm what is left of her." The words settled between them, heavy but undeniable. Lucian did not respond immediately. But this time, his silence was not resistance. It was realization. Not the same person, Emily added quickly, but something that carries what she could not finish. Lucian stepped even closer now, his gaze intense, searching deeper than before. "That would mean," he said slowly, "you are not an accident." Emily met his eyes, her fear still there, but no longer controlling her. "No," she said, "I am not." The truth changed something, not just in her, in him. The uncertainty that had lingered since the beginning shifted into something more solid. A decision. Lucian turned slightly, his posture straightening, his presence settling into something stronger, more defined. "Then this ends differently," he said. Emily felt her breath catch. "What do you mean?" Lucian looked back at her, his voice calm, but carrying a weight that felt like a promise. "They will come," he said. "The council will not ignore this. They will demand answers. They will demand control." Emily nodded slowly. And you'll give it to them? She asked. Lucian's gaze hardened. No, he said. The single word carried more power than anything else he had said tonight. They already decided her fate once, he continued. They will not decide yours. Emily felt something shift inside her again, but this time it was not fear. It was steadiness. And what about her? She asked quietly, glancing toward the shadows. Lucian followed her gaze, his expression softer for just a moment. If you are what remains of her, he said, then she's not trapped anymore. The implication settled gently, but firmly. Emily understood it. Whatever Eleanor Voss had become, whatever part of her still lingered, it had found a way forward. Through her, Emily took a slow breath, feeling the weight of everything that had happened, everything that had changed. She was not the same person who had walked into this room. That life was gone, but something else had taken its place. Something stronger, something that finally made sense. She looked back at Lucian, meeting his gaze without hesitation this time. Then we do not hide, she said. Lucian studied her for a moment, then nodded once. No, he agreed. A brief silence passed between them. Then, quieter now, but certain, he added, we make sure this ends on our terms. Emily felt the final piece settle into place. The fear was still there. The danger had not disappeared. But for the first time, she understood her place in it. Not as a victim, not as a mistake, but as something that could change the outcome. Somewhere in the hallway, the shadows remained still, but they no longer felt like a threat. They felt like a memory finally at rest. And for the first time since this began, Emily did not feel like she was standing in the wrong place. She felt exactly where she was meant to be,